middle of the week and some nice weather. It's always good, a little bit warmer. We're going to give everybody a couple minutes to get here. If you guys want, while we kind of wait, if you didn't get a chance to go to Code, oh, this is not right. There we go. Code Academy Monday. I can send out this again. I was hoping you all would be able to get to the end of just this original one, not necessarily tip calculator, but just Python syntax. That'll give you a good introduction. Yeah, Val, I can give plenty of ideas for Scratch projects. Maybe I'll post that on Edmodo in a little bit. There's a lot of different games you can try, so I'll post that on Edmodo. Yeah, the Python thing is Codecademy. I'll send it out in chat right now. You got to go to codecademy.com, that first website, if you guys saw, with the PHP on it. That was codecademy.org. It's not allowing me to type anything in here. Huh. Okay. Alright, so I sent the link out. I don't know if it actually copied as a link, but under questions, chat's not letting me type for some unknown reason. Okay. So this is kind of what we went into. It's 6:04, so we'll go ahead and get started. This is kind of what we went into yesterday. In this website, Codecademy, as soon as you log in, it should take you to Python. If not, if you weren't here Monday, you'll be able to find it in the front page. If you go down to languages, it's called Python. All right, we learned about some different topics. We learned about operations, commenting, some different kinds of data types, and a kind of a review over all of the material. And maybe you continued on, maybe you didn't quite get there, but that's okay. The whole idea is that you would be able to get an introduction to what Python can offer before next week. We're all just trying to prep before next week. Hopefully you would be if you do not do these. However, if you want to get a better understanding of what we're doing as opposed to just simply typing what's on my screen, I really recommend that you take a look at Python syntax and strings and console output. And I can put this up on Edmodo as well. These two, I think, would just give you a good good understanding before we get into the work. All right. So let's take a look at this. I tried to create an introduction that would kind of connect things that we've looked at in Scratch with some of the things that you've already looked at in Codecademy and some of the things you will see next week. And just in general, it's kind of an introduction to programming logic. So we're going to go through this at the start of class today. Here's some of the sources from this. So during the variable definition part of Codecademy, I think it was lesson 2 actually, or lesson 3, you saved a number to a variable, and they had one variable called int, or int, and one variable called float, or float. And these are actually different things that Python recognizes these as different data types. And we're going to talk about data types again in a little bit. But it will recognize any whole number as an integer, and any number with a decimal as a floating point number. And they do act a little bit differently. This isn't super important to understand right now why it treats them differently, but these are two data types that not just in Python but in many programming languages, a computer will recognize a whole number differently than it will recognize a number with a decimal or a floating point number. Sure, Valerie. Okay, so Valerie has a really great question. She said that she's used idle before, and that it seems really similar to Python, but it's called idle and not Python. And Codecademy is calling it Python. Valerie, we're actually going to get to that at the end. I'll explain the difference there. Okay, so here you see, this is what we at Young Engineers of Today call Python as a calculator, because Python acts like a pretty good calculator. You're able to add values together. So Python recognizes this 5 as an integer, and it recognizes that it has the value of 5. And you're able to then add values together. So both of the 5s are values, both of them are integers, and this plus sign is an operator. Right, and you're able to add it together. And you see that if you did this in idle, you would come up with 10. And hopefully you guys got a chance to see that in Codecademy. We will open idle on our Raspberry Pis next week and take a look at this. And that's called an this whole line would be an expression because it evaluates to a value. That value is 10. And Python recognizes kind of the big mathematics operators or mathematical operators: addition, multiplication, subtraction, and division. Notice with these, so that would be value, operator, value. Notice with these, there's always a value before and after the operator. Right? If you don't put a value both before and after the operator, that will return a syntax error. I wanted to include this slide as an example because we talked about syntax errors on Monday. They're an error in the way that, quote-unquote, the expression or statement is formed. So we talked about that. If you're comparing it to the English language, it would be like this statement: the cat yellow. That's not a sentence. That's not a correct sentence following English grammar because there's no verb. Well, this is not a correct expression. The syntax is invalid because there's not a second value following the operator. Someone added, can you add an integer with a floating point number, or an integer with a float? And you can, and we'll take a look at that next week on what happens, but it will then just treat it like a floating point number. No worries, Anna, glad that you could join us. We're just going over some Python terms here. So something that you did not get to in Python are called strings, And this is what I was suggesting that you guys take a look at before next week. Now, strings are a way to use words, let's say that, use words in Python. And you can either denote that a string of characters is a string by using double quotation marks or single quotation marks. Okay, and you'll see that idle it's really handy, that makes that word turn green. Now, unlike how Python understands that the integer 5 has the value of 5, it's like holding up, 5 ones, and that you can add 5 and get 10, Python understands those numbers. Python does not understand that the character D, the character O, and the character G together form a word. And that, that word represents a mammal. That a lot of times, man's best friend. Python will just make anything inside of quotation marks a string. It doesn't matter what it is. This 22 is no longer recognizable as 22 to the computer. To the computer, it's now just 2 characters. Same with this down here. This is just a bunch of symbols. But to Python, it doesn't matter. It's just a string. Python does not know that these are separate words. It thinks of the space as a string as well. I have not heard of the Hello World book by that person, but that sounds cool. Hello World is a very famous program. Or not one program, but many people program Hello World for their first program. So you can also add strings together, and what happens is that the strings just literally add together. So hello, my name is, which are 4 separate strings, would add together to become hello, my name is, because we didn't give any spaces up there. I added this slide just to emphasize that Python understands what integers are in a way that a calculator understands what a number is. But Python does not recognize these as separate words. So it's not going to put a space in between them. To Python, these are just characters, just symbols. So if you wanted to add a space, you would have to physically put a space in there. You guys do not need to be taking notes. You don't need to be stressing about this right now. Just introducing these concepts, because we're going to play a game today, and I want to make sure as you're playing the game that you're understanding what you're typing. I think a little bit of an introduction will go a long way for the game being more educational, as well as being fun, hopefully. So, this line, oh, someone has a question. Hi, Caitlin. What's your question? In Codecademy, you're not supposed to be on Codecademy right now. You're just supposed to be following along with me. Thank you, Caitlin. So to be clear, no one should be doing Codecademy right now. We're trying to connect what you've learned in Codecademy with what you've learned in Scratch and kind of getting you ready. So please be paying attention to what's going on my screen. I see a lot of people right now that have the little yellow hazard sign next to their username, and that means that you're not clicked into the webinar. So you guys don't have to listen to this for very long. It's not a very long lecture, but I do want you guys listening to this. So there we go. I'm seeing some of those hazard signs go away. Please be paying attention to this beginning part of the webinar. It's going to help your understanding a lot. Okay. So the error with this statement, again, it's a syntax error, like not having a verb in your English sentence. If you don't have a quotation mark at the end of your string, it's like an error in punctuation. Okay. Boolean logic, so in Codecademy, in the beginning of Codecademy, we talked about true-false logic, and it's used in conditional expressions, as in, if a condition is true, do this. So these blocks can either be true, can either be like reduced to true or false. So is the space key being pressed? That's either true or false. The user is either pressing the space bar or not pressing the space bar. Are these two colors touching? That's either going to be true or false. Those two colors are touching or they're not touching. Okay, so we've learned 4 data types so far. We've learned integers, floating point numbers, even though we really can treat these two very similarly right now. Boolean, which can either be true or false. Those are the only two values within the Boolean data type, true, false. They have the capital first letter. And strings. And you guys haven't quite gotten to strings in Codecademy, but hopefully you'll be able to take a look at that. We also talked about variables, and that's really important. Variables use this equal sign as the assignment operator, and you can assign a value to a sequence of characters. And now you can use those sequence of characters, and it carries the same value as what you stored to it. Alright, this is important, so make sure you're looking at my screen for a moment here. Very important. Notice that there are no quotation marks around VAR. That's because this is a variable. It's not a string. You can save 15 to var. Or you can save 3 to age. That's the variable name. That's the assignment operator, the equal sign, and that's the value that you're saving. Or you can save a string to a variable, but this variable does not have quotation marks around it. It's because it's a variable, and this is a string. There is a difference. A big difference. And you can look at a variable, I like to think about it like a box with a label on it. So think about a big cardboard box with a label on it that reads box. Not very imaginative. And inside of box, you're putting the number 4. So you can look and say that box, what's inside of box? Well, 4 is inside of box. Well, now you can take a different box, a different cardboard box with the label different box on it, and you can put box inside. And if you ask, hey, what's inside of different box? Well, it will be the value 4. It kind of opens both boxes at the same time. You can also put different items inside. So if I have a box labeled box and I put 4 inside, check, 4 is inside, I can then put instead reassign it. So I can now say, all right, well actually now 8 is inside the box. Notice it doesn't try to add 4 and 8 together. It just redefines what is saved inside of box. Alright, functions are named, reusable sequences of code. You've seen these within Codecademy as print. When you print lines of code, and then you can see them up on the console in the upper right-hand corner. Up here are some examples of functions that you used in Scratch. So, for example, the if-on-edge-bounce block was really all of these blocks combined. It was just an easier way so that you didn't have to use all of these blocks every time you wanted a bouncing ball. It's really an if block that senses if whatever you're talking, the bouncy ball, let's say, is touching the edge of the screen, then take whatever direction the bouncy ball is pointing in right now, add 180 to it, and have it point in that direction instead. instead of having to create this every time you wanted to use like a sort of bounce block, they made a block for you, a built-in function. So that's what functions are. They're just named, reusable sequences of code. You're going to be using functions today in the game that we're playing. Okay, Valerie, the equal sign is the assignment operator. That means that you're assigning something. So you're saying that, hey Python, listen up. The letters B, O, and X are now a variable. You need to learn what this variable means. And all right, I'm going to say that anytime I use the letters B, O, and X, I really mean the value 4. So you got to learn this right now. I'm assigning this value to the letters B, O, and X used together. If you use two equal signs together, that's saying equivalent. No one needs to open idle right now. I'm just trying to answer Valerie's question. So we're going to look at idle very soon. Do not worry, you do not need to open idle yet. I just want to answer Valerie's question about why, I keep calling this equal sign an assignment operator, and why you couldn't say something like 3 plus 3 equals 6. You can say variable equals box, or variable equals 3, and that's setting this variable equal to a value. But you can say 3 plus 3, and Python will respond 6, but you can't say 3 plus 3 equals 6. Because Python is reading this as take what's on the left side and assign it the value 6. You can't assign an expression a value. That doesn't make sense to Python. If instead you wanted to say this side of the equal sign is equal to what's on this side, what you're really doing, first of all, you use two equal signs together. It's called the equivalency operator. And what you're really doing here is saying, you're asking a question. Is 3 plus 3 equivalent to 6? And you'll see that it responds with a Boolean value. So if I said something that wasn't true, again, it's like asking a question. Is 4 plus 5 equivalent to 10? False. No, it's not. Oh, wow. So many questions. Hold on. You just became a scratcher. Very cool. Oh, Anna, very cool. Is it a fun game? It is a fun game. It does include your mouse. No worries. No, we're going to want the kids react to Minecraft at the beginning of class next time, Anna, but I promise we will. I thought about it actually. I was like, hey, we're going to do Minecraft Pie. Why don't we watch it then? Okay? Alright, we will watch a fun game. We just got to get to it. Or we will play a fun game today. Okay, so if statements operate based on Boolean logic. An if statement will run a sequence of code only if a condition is true. And we use those in Scratch, right? If the spacebar key is being pressed, run the following sequence of code. Well, Valerie, let's say you only wanted, let's set the age to 8. You only wanted to tell a joke to a kid if they were over the age of 10. So you could say if, and this isn't just, or if they were 10 years old. This isn't just for Valerie, this is for everyone. If age equivalent to 10, print, here is my joke. Notice nothing got printed because age was not equivalent to 10. Age equivalent to 10 question mark would evaluate to false. And since it was false, it would have gotten skipped. So if instead age equals 12, if age is equivalent to 12, which is messed up, print, wahoo! Wahoo did get print because age is equivalent to 12 would evaluate to true. We also used loops already in Scratch. Loops are used to repeat a sequence of code, either a set number of times, like when we wanted Tara to walk across the screen, or Scratch Cat to walk across the screen, or they're used forever, like a forever loop. There are also some kinds of loops that we haven't talked about called while loops that repeat until a certain condition is false. Alright, and you guys have been using Codecademy, and we'll talk about this again at the end of class. Today, we're going to learn something called Code Combat. And we'll come back to that in just a moment. Next week, you're going to be using IDLE, which stands for Interactive Development Environment. And you're going to be using this to control Minecraft with your Raspberry Pi. So on Monday, you will need your Raspberry Pi set up, preferably before class starts. So Valerie asked a little bit ago, she said, I use IDLE and it looks really similar to Python, but it's not called Python. Well, actually, Valerie, it is part of Python. It's just Python's interactive development environment. Python is the name of the computer language. So if you want to mess around with Python, you use their quote-unquote development environment, their IDE. You may have heard of something like an IDE before. Maybe, I don't know where you would have heard that, but that's what programmers will use to develop anything in any of their programs. If you want to develop an app, you can use an IDE called Xcode and develop an app. Right now, if you want to control Minecraft, you're going to be using Python's IDE, which is IDLE, or Interactive Development Environment. And they decided to include that L in there. Who knows why? Cool. Anna, why don't you go back to one of the webinars where we set up the pies for the first time and take a look at it? And if you can't figure it out based on one of those webinars, I can help you on Monday. So do I speak Python? Anna, you know, we haven't gotten very far with Python. I think that you can say that you're learning Python, but remember that even just the introduction to Python lessons in Codecademy, because by no means do they say that you'll be an expert by the end of it. It says that it'd take about 13 hours to introduce this, and that just introduces you to Python. So people can spend a really, really long time learning a language, but you shouldn't let that intimidate you. You know, people will learn Python over years, and they just pick it up, just like how you can't be a basketball star, you know, just by going to 2 weeks worth of practice. Okay, great. So let's talk about this game. Code Combat. Code Combat is kind of like a puzzle game mixed with Codecademy mixed with a fighting game. And it gets more difficult and more complicated the further you get into the game. Just a little realm. Ooh, status bar is going a little bit nuts. Okay. So yeah, I can't tell if it remembers who I am, but I think maybe. So you don't have to create an account, but if you want to save your space, you will have to create an account. That's completely optional, and you can wait until the end of class today to create an account, see if you like it or not. So we're going to look at the examples in the beginning. It's pretty simple, but just know as we're going through this right now, there are a bunch of levels, and it gets harder and harder as you go along. So if you're like, I don't know about this seems like really straightforward and just like coding, well, that might be true at first, but the puzzles will start to increase in difficulty, and also there's like, you know, you've got to upgrade your armor and upgrade your weaponry and stuff like that. The other thing is you can also play multiplayer, but we're not going to get to that today either. That's like if you're interested. I love Code Combat so far. I've only used it for a little over a week now, but young engineers of today just found out about it, and we just decided we had to try to get it in this semester. So it's a great way. It's very educational, and it's also really fun. It's fairly addictive. So okay. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and send this out, and I want you all, I know it's going to be super tempting once I send to this link out to just start going through the lessons blindly. Okay, so this will kind of pop up. You can change your hero. You can either be a girl or a boy. And Anya Weston or that guy. I'm going to be Anya. And you want to make sure that you have Python, which is the default. I know you all probably want to play. I will send out the link very soon. Alright, it's being very slow. But that's my computer, not the game. Okay. See, like you can get, when you unlock these people, they can do magic. And eventually you're going to store up like a bunch of different functions you can use. It's very cool. So just keep that in mind as we play today. Sorry guys, this is taking a long time. Keep that in mind as we play today, because it might not seem super difficult or challenging right now, but it really becomes very cool. So you double click to equip this. Alright. Ooh. Get the full screen mode. So the reason that I want you guys to watch my screen right now, I know some of you can go to Code Combat, is I want you to pay attention. I'm going to point out what I really want you all to pay attention to as you play this to best prepare us for next week. Come on. Okay. You'll notice that, oops. All right. So you'll notice that you have these down here are what they call methods. And this is talking about a special kind of Python called object-oriented Python, or object-oriented programming. You don't have to quite worry about that, but they work very similarly to functions. So here you'll see move down, and there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff that happens. Your character will move down when move down is run. And notice that it even has the parentheses like print or input would have. So you can think about these like move down, move left, move right, and move up as different functions that you have. And you can think about self as a variable. And that variable is referring to our icon of our hero. So I want you to be kind of quizzing yourself. You're going to be learning about loops. You're going to be using strings. The strings are the names of your enemies. And you're going to be setting variables, using if statements. So I really want you to challenge yourself to connect some of the things that you've learned in Codecademy and that you've learned in Scratch while you're playing the game. Hi Valerie, what's your question?
What happens if you leave off the parentheses at the end?
Okay, well, let's see.
I mean, do they like serve a purpose?
They do.
Even if you don't have anything inside of them?
That's a really interesting question. So in this game, it might run. Okay, yeah, see, it gives us a little syntax error. It needs the parentheses. It needs the parentheses. In regularly, just like using Python for, let's say, coding in Xcode to make an app or something like that, it's just not going to run because it's going to assume move left is something else, like a property. The parentheses say that this is a method. So you could have a method and a property, or a function and a variable, let's use those terms, that are defined as the same word. But it's going to denote like that this is going to be a method or a function because of those parentheses. And the reason that the parentheses are there is because you're able to add parameters to certain methods. For example, once you get to a certain level in this, you're going to have to fight your enemies, and you put the enemy's name as a string, so in quotation marks, in between the two parentheses.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. I hope that answered your question. Oh, Valerie, Minecraft is an open-ended game. It's like a sandbox game, but it's incredibly cool. You know what? I'll do a little introduction to it before Minecraft Pie next week. But you can build your own worlds. You have to survive. Apparently, there's a whole bunch of lore behind it that I've been learning about. There's some very cool animations, but it's this really awesome game that uses. Oh man, it's hard to sum up. It's very, very cool. We will take a more look at it. It's already on your pies. Yes, Anna, I did send it out. All the people look like Herobrine. Oh, that's funny. Oh, yeah, Caitlin, it's supposed to remind, yeah, it does, it should kind of remind you of Clash of Clans. It's like a cooler well, I don't know if cooler is the word. It's a more educational version of Clash of Clans. Initial levels aren't super hard. You might have a hard time with the punctuation or the capitalization, but you generally know, all right, my character needs to go to the right, then she needs to go down, then she needs to go up, then she needs to go to the right. Like, that's pretty basic, but as it continues, it becomes hard. I shouldn't say hard, challenging, but also really fun. That's true. One is an app and one is not. I did send out the link, but I'll send it out again. It is pretty awesome. Adele is asking if someone plays Clash of Clans. And Caitlin was the one that said it reminds her of Clash of Clans. I know a lot of my students play Clash of Clans, so much so that we had to block it. We had to block the IP address at our school. But I also know friends who are my age that play Clash of Clans. It's a very, very popular game. Alright, does anyone have a question on what they're supposed to be doing right now? And I can kind of run through the levels and explain, but if you guys want to go at your own pace, that's fine. But for those people that might be stuck, I'm going to explain how it works. So, let's see. Here we have our hero. We need to collect the gems. And so we're going to be using these down here to help us move. And we type them on new lines. So this first one has her go from here to that little spot, that little circle in the floor, and then stop. And next, going left is just going to go this way. It doesn't actually turn the character. So we're going to go move down, and that will have us stop down at the bottom there. And then we're going to have to use the move up. And let's just see what happens if we do that. So I'm going to run the code here. So we move to the right. We move down. And we move up. And then we stop. So you'll notice that the self move up didn't move all the way up to that gem. All right, and I think oh, no, that worked. And you can use your gems, which is cool. I don't know what the ding dong noise was. And Caitlin, my day was really good. Thank you for asking. It was a good day. That's okay. I can read through type. So I'm going to go ahead and do level 3 in case anyone's stuck on level 3. Also, it's just fun, so I'll keep going. Notice that these things are all locked, but you can use your gems to unlock them. Like, how much do these cost? I could get those if I wanted. I'm not going to, though. I'm stingy. I want to get the cat. I don't know how we get the cat. That's what I want to get. Oh, I can start my level. Whoops. Alright, for this one, we have to stay out of the sight of the ogre, and that's the ogre. His name is Snort. And so, you know, instead of maybe moving to the right across that hallway, I want to go up, over, and down. So I type self dot, and then I would use my method, move up, move right, move down. I'm not quite ready to run, right? Because I would have moved up, right, down, and need to move to the right again. Whoops! Oh, I don't need to move up again. I need to move right again. Alright, the challenge with this one, and I think I'm on level 4 or 5 right now, is that you only have 9 statements to do it in. So let's take a look. If you try to go down, you go right, down, right, up, left, right, down, right. That's actually a lot more than just going the way up top, down, and back up and out. If you actually type it out, and we can, why not just type it out? So if I'm trying to go the bottom way, and remember, every time you see the circle, like I'm going to be able to go here, but then I'm going to have to do self.move right again. Alright, so if you try to go this bottom way, you have to go to the right, down, right, up, left, right, down, right. And you can see that's too many. That's 11 statements. Of course, it gives me a success. Perfect. The bonus, I'm missing the bonus. Can I stop? Oh, man. If I would have shown you the other way, you would have gone right, up, right, down, down, up, right, and that would have been less. Just because you would have never had to go over to these blocks here. Yes, we are just playing, you guys are playing the game at your own speed. I'm going through the first few levels. On the white space one, so I'm going to go over that right now. But I want you to take a look at Python's syntax. Let me go back. Play as much code combat as you'd like, but I really want you to look at what would be really. So someone had a question on the white space one.